More than 21 years after the death of Jam Master Jay, one-third of the legendary hip-hop trio Run DMC, a jury has found two men guilty of his murder.
Two men found guilty of murder in the killing of Run DMC's Jam Master Jay. Jurors found Carl Jordan Jr., Jay's godson, and Ronald Washington, Jay's childhood friend, guilty on all counts.
February 2024, a Queens courtroom finally erupted, delivering the justice that had been hanging in the air for more than 2 decades. Two men were found guilty of carrying out the cold-blooded hit, executing Jam Master Jay inside his own studio 22 years ago.
October 30th, 2002, Jason Mizell, also known as Jam Master Jay of the legendary hip-hop group Run DMC, was murdered in cold blood in his recording studio in Queens, New York. Now, it's taken more than 20 years, but today, a jury in this courthouse found Carl Jordan Jr. and Ronald Washington guilty of murder.
For years, fear locked lips while rumors connected Jam Master Jay's murder to Queen street politics and the infamous ambush on a young 50 Cent, sprayed 9 times just months earlier. But what really unfolded that night? To find out, we have to rewind to the moment hip-hop lost one of its giants, and the truth was buried beneath silence. In 2002, Jay's death was ruled a bold and calculated hit inside the Run DMC icon's Queens studio. And it wasn't until February 2020 that the long-awaited verdict finally came crashing down.
Candace Gibson, both men standing trial for the 2002 murder of the Run DMC superstar, found guilty on all charges.
The courtroom was heavy with tension as the verdict was read aloud. The name stunned everyone. Carl Jordan Jr., now 40, Jam Master Jay's own godson, and Ronald Washington, 59, an old friend who had been crashing at Jay's sister's house. The betrayal cut like a knife. But the drama didn't end there. The judge's voice had barely faded when Washington exploded, yelling at the jury, "You just killed 2 innocent people." The gallery erupted as Jordan supporters cursed in anger. Yet Jordan himself stayed composed, flashing a calm smile to his people and saying, "I love you all." For nearly 22 years, dead ends, whispers, and fear had buried the truth. But now, that silence was shattered. This wasn't just the end of a cold case. It cracked open a story that rocked hip-hop far beyond one man's death. Jam Master Jay wasn't only the legendary turntablist of Run DMC. He was also the gatekeeper who gave a hungry, unknown Queens rapper named 50 Cent his very first shot in the studio. Jay molded his early sound, teaching him how to record, count bars, and build songs. Long before Get Rich or Die Trying, it was Jam Master Jay who showed a kid from South Jamaica how to turn raw hustle into music. But in the months leading up to Jay's execution, chaos was everywhere. That same protege had barely survived his own brush with death, sprayed 9 times in a hail of bullets. And ever since, the whispers never stopped. Was there a link between the attempted murder of 50 Cent and the cold-blooded execution of Jam Master Jay? The streets buzzed with the same theory for decades. Both were tied to the same ruthless politics in Queens. And when the guilty verdict finally dropped, 50's reaction spoke louder than words. He posted a headline on Instagram with just 3 words. "Well, that's all, folks." Signed off with a shrug emoji. It was a cold goodbye that said it all. The world finally had names and convictions. But the motive, the betrayal, and the shadows connecting Jay's murder to street politics and to the rising star he once called family still linger like unfinished business.
The life of the man known as Jam Master Jay, his real name, Jason Mizell, one of the founders of the groundbreaking rap group Run DMC.
Take us back to that chilling October night in 2002. Rain slicked down Queens, turning Merrick Boulevard into a glowing ribbon under the streetlights. Inside the 24/7 studio, Jam Master Jay lounged on the couch, controller in hand, locked into a video game with his friend Iriel Tony Rincon. Across the room, his business manager Lydia High shuffled through paperwork. The atmosphere was calm, familiar, safe. Nobody realized that death had already crept up the backstays. Moments earlier, someone had silently opened the fire escape door. That man, later named as Jay Bryant, vanished just as quietly, but his move cleared the way for 2 others. Then came the betrayal. Up the staircase climbed Carl Jordan Jr., Jay's very own godson, with Ronald Washington, a childhood friend, At his side, Jordan entered first. Jay's face lit up with warmth, greeting him with a half handshake only family gets. But in an instant, everything flipped. Before Jay could even react, Jordan raised a gun and aimed it straight at him. "Oh!" Jay gasped. The word barely left his lips before the first shot cracked through the studio. The bullet ripped through his head. Jay collapsed instantly, life gone in a flash. A second gunshot exploded, tearing into Rincone's leg, leaving him writhing and screaming in pain. Washington swung his weapon next, shoving Lydia High face down onto the floor. She froze, paralyzed with terror, too scared to move, too scared to breathe. Rincone, bleeding and in shock, would later stay silent.
Jam Master Jay was working in a recording studio here in Jamaica. He and a 25-year-old male Hispanic were relaxing in a lounge near the studio when a man walked into the studio, gun drawn, and opened fire. Zell was struck once in the head and killed,
refusing to tell police a single word about what he had just seen. And just like that, the two gunmen vanished into the night as quickly as they came. What was supposed to be another ordinary night in the studio had turned into one of the darkest executions hip-hop had ever seen. Security cameras were supposed to tell the story, but instead, they told nothing, for different angles, and not a single clear frame of the killers ever surfaced. Even though Jam Master Jay's studio sat just a 3-minute walk from the 103rd Precinct, the case quickly turned into a fog of dead ends. One possible lead came from Tanya Edwards, a receptionist nearby, who claimed she saw a woman in a floppy brown hat leading a man in a velour tracksuit toward the studio that night. At first, she swore it looked like Jay's manager, Lydia High. Years later, she admitted she wasn't sure anymore. That one shaky account was all police had, and it wasn't enough. The truth was harsher. The hit wasn't done by strangers in the shadows. It was pulled off by men Jay knew, men he trusted. When the gunfire stopped, silence swallowed the studio. Lydia High and Ariel Tony Rincone, the only two people who saw it all, told police almost nothing. Fear smothered their voices before the sirens even arrived. Just like the murders of Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls, Jay's case was swallowed by rumors, theories, and speculation. But this wasn't about confusion. It was about terror. Everyone inside knew exactly who pulled the trigger. Nobody wanted to be the next body. That silence came from the streets themselves. The code was clear. Snitchies don't survive. Lydia and Rincone downplayed what they saw, leaving out names, twisting the truth. It wasn't until 2017, nearly 15 years later, that Rincone finally broke and admitted Carl Jordan Jr., Jay's own godson, was the shooter. By then, time had buried leads and blurred evidence. Even the cameras failed the case. Some recordings disappeared, others mysteriously disabled. To Jay's older brother Randy Allen, there was no doubt this had been an inside job. Loyalty, fear, and betrayal had locked the case tied to the Nenny vault. Meanwhile, the streets did what they always do, filled the silence with whispers. In barbershops, on corners, and in late-night phone calls, the same rumor refused to die. That Jam Master Jay's murder was connected to Queens' most feared drug lord, Kenneth Supreme McGriff. And the rising tension around Jay's protege, 50 Cent McGriff, wasn't just another name. He was a supreme team boss, the man who ran Queens' drug trade through the 80s and 90s. His reputation still carried weight into the 2000s, spoken in equal parts fear and respect. And when 50 Cent called him out by name in his track Ghetto Quran, he lit a fuse nobody could put out. Not long after, in May 2000, 50 was ambushed outside his grandmother's home. 9 bullets ripped into his body. He survived, but the hit left a crater in the industry. Labels and XX blacklisted him out of pure fear. But Jam Master Jay didn't flinch. When everyone else ran, Jay stood by 50, recording with him, giving him a lane when the rest of the game turned its back. That loyalty sparked a deadly question. Did protecting 50 put Jay in the crosshairs? Was his defiance against McGriff a fatal mistake? Federal investigators chased a lead, with whispers that Murder Incorporated, tied to McGriff, was pressuring the industry to shut 50 out. McGriff publicly brushed it off, claiming he didn't even know 50 Cent personally. As for Jam Master Jay, he insisted he'd only ever heard of him, denying any connection at all. Eventually, the allegations vanished from official filings, but the suspicion never disappeared from the streets. Police later admitted McGriff wasn't their top suspect anymore, but by then, it didn't matter. His name was already stamped into the legend of Jay's death, another layer in a case drowning in rumor. And McGriff wasn't the only name thrown around. In the absence of proof, theories multiplied. Some whispered about money, others about revenge. One story even accused Jay's own business partner, Randy Allen, of cashing in on a $500,000 insurance policy. Detectives chased every angle, but nothing solid stuck. Every new theory only deepened the fog. And through it all, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a murder of a hip-hop legend. It was a murder of truth itself. The silence of witnesses, the failure of cameras, and the endless swirl of rumor made sure Jam Master Jay's death became more than a crime. It became a mystery, one that haunted Queens for decades. Curtis Schoon, once tied to Queens' drug game, was rumored to have ordered the hit over a lingering debt. But Schoon shut that talk down fast, insisting Jay had cleared what he owed years earlier, and investigators never found a shred of proof against him. Then came the wildest headline grabber of them all, whispers of an affair between Kenneth Supreme McGriff and Jay's wife, Terry. But the second you scratched the surface, it crumbled. McGriff was under federal surveillance at the time, and there was zero evidence a relationship like that ever existed. For detectives, the challenge wasn't just chasing leads, it was sifting through gossip. Each rumor pulled in its own enemies, alliances, and motives. The streets buzzed, but nobody talked. Fear kept lips sealed, and with so many names in the mix, the truth about who really stepped into 24/7 studios at night stayed buried under layers of silence and suspicion. For years, that web of rumors spun the case in circles. But beneath all the noise, street beefs, debts, music politics, lay a deeper story. A story that began long before that rainy night in Queens. To understand why Jam Master Jay died, you first have to understand the life he lived. Jason Mizell was born January 21st, 1965, in Brooklyn, but raised in Hollis, Queens. By the early 80s, the world knew him as Jam Master Jay, the magician behind the turntables of Run DMC. With Joseph Run Simmons and Daryl DMC McDaniels on the MIC, Jay didn't just back a rap group. Together, they rewrote the rules of music. Run DMC became hip-hop's breakthrough act, the first to go gold, the first to go platinum, the first to storm MTV, and the first to take rap onto stages like American Bandstand. Their 1986 album Raising Hell went multi-platinum, powered by anthems like It's Tricky, It's Like That, and their game-changing rock crossover with Aerosmith, Walk This Way. That record didn't just break charts, it shoved hip-hop into the pop mainstream and proved rap was here to stay. But Run DMC wasn't only about hits. They were role models. They pushed anti-drug messages, fronted PSAs, and used their voices to pull kids away from gangs. Their clean image wasn't just branding, it made them beloved and trusted in the very neighborhoods they came from. An amazing talent. He loved everybody. He could never say no, one friend recalled. That love, that inability to push people away. I think that's what contributed to where we are today. By the time they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2009 and honored with rap's first Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016, Jam Master Jay's place in history was cemented. But while the world saw a hip-hop pioneer, a mentor, a community leader, the truth was more complicated. Behind the lights, Jay was battling struggles the public never saw. And those hidden battles, not the wild rumors, would drag him down a dangerous path into the drug game and toward the real motive for his murder. By the late 90s, the roar of the crowds had faded. Run DMC, once unstoppable, had passed their prime. The tours were smaller, the checks lighter. The era they created had moved on. And for Jay, a man who once stood at hip-hop's very center, the math no longer added up. In '89, he launched JMJ Records, the label that birthed Onyx and later gave a young Queens hustler named 50 Cent his first real shot. But by the early 2000s, the industry had shifted. JMJ Records wasn't pulling enough to cover the mounting responsibilities Jay had taken on. And that weight? It was crushing him. The IRS had him cornered with nearly $500,000 in unpaid taxes, penalties, and interest. But even under that crushing weight, Jay refused to pull back. Known for his endless generosity, he kept carrying everyone around him. His mother, his cousins heading off to college. his wife and kids, even covering his sister's mortgage. Jam Master Jay wasn't just providing for his family. He was carrying an empire on his back. Yet behind the scenes, the cracks were starting to show. If someone close needed help, Jay never said no. But every yes dragged him deeper into the hole. The clean, anti-drug image the public adored Master Man boxed him by debt, by dwindling options, and by pressure no platinum plaque could erase. And inside that pressure cooker, Jay made a decision that changed everything. He crossed into a world he once warned others to avoid, a move that tied him to the very streets he had spent years urging kids to escape. For decades, he was a symbol of hip-hop's rise. But as the years passed, the fame faded, the checks shrank, and the bills kept coming. According to prosecutors, that's when survival outweighed reputation. Because bills don't care about legacies, and the IRS doesn't care about Run DMC. With the walls closing in, Jay slipped into a role few could imagine, middleman. Not a corner hustler, not a kingpin, but a bridge between kilos and cash. According to trial testimony, Jay arranged large-scale cocaine deals stretching across the Eastern District of New York and beyond. This wasn't ambition, it was survival, a desperate hustle to close the gap between what he owed and what he earned. But that choice carried a cost, one that would leave him vulnerable to betrayal by the very people closest to him. At first, he kept the operation small, under the radar. But then came Uncle. That was the name Jay used for his supplier. And Uncle turned out to be none other than Terry Southwest T. Flannery, co-founder of the infamous Black Mafia family. In the drug world, Southwest T was a legend, a ghost with reach from coast to coast, the kind of supplier every dealer dreamed of but few ever touched. With Uncle in the mix, the stakes skyrocketed. Bigger weight, bigger money, bigger risks. The side hustle Jay once kept tucked in the shadows now lived in dangerous light. And with it came danger, rivalries, and the kind of people who never forgot debts and never forgave betrayal. The same Jam Master Jay who once fronted anti-drug campaigns was suddenly neck-deep in one of the most feared networks in the game. The risk around him was growing by the day. But long before Uncle, before debts, before betrayals, Jay poured his heart into something purer, mentorship. Back in 1996, when most of the industry dismissed Curtis 50 Cent Jackson as just another street kid from Queens, Jay saw the diamond no one else did. He didn't just sign him to JMJ Records. He took him under his wing. Inside the studio, Jay drilled him on the craft. How to write hooks that hit. How to structure songs so they stuck in your head after one listen. 50 later recalled in an interview, Jay taught me about choruses, about counting bars with a metronome. He made me think about songs, not just rhymes. DJ Clark can't remember Jay calling it straight. This kid's going to be huge. Tony Yayo backed it up, swearing Jay was the one who gave 50 the real shot. For Jay, it wasn't just business, it was a mission. He wanted to elevate 50 above the street politics that shadowed him. He wanted him to win. The tragedy? Jay never got to see it happen. He never witnessed the platinum plaques, the sold-out arenas, the global domination that turned 50 into a household name. And after his murder, that bond with 50 became one of the earliest and loudest theories about why he was targeted. Just one night before his death, the studio was full of joy. October 29, 2002. Inside 24/7, Jay couldn't stop talking about the news he'd waited years for. 50 had finally landed his record deal with Dr. Dre and Eminem. Jay's cousin Stephen Watford remembered it like it was yesterday. He was so happy about 50 getting signed. We laughed, we cried. It meant the world to him. That night, the room was heavy with pride and relief. They swapped grind stories, replayed old road trips, even remembered celebrating in Milwaukee when the shady aftermath signing became official. Jay moved through that room like a coach on championship night, replaying memories, picturing the future, clapping backs, and smiling like his work was finally paying off. The joy of that night lingered like smoke. The last spark of a bond Jay had built, one he would never live long enough to see reach its peak. And for years after, the whispers pointed in one direction. To many, it almost felt too easy to believe. Jam Master Jay had stood shoulder to shoulder with 50 Cent, even when half the industry crossed the street just to avoid him. In 2000, 50 was ambushed outside his grandmother's home. 9 bullets tore into his body, and somehow he lived. The streets of Queens said the hit came because of Ghetto Kiran, the track many believe exposed the borough's underworld. Not long after, another story spread, a secret industry blacklist. Whispers in studios and boardrooms warned labels to stay far away from 50. His name was already tangled in rumors tied to Motor Incorporated and Kenneth Supreme McGriff. And yet, Jay never flinched. He kept recording with 50, kept his doors open, kept standing by someone the rest of the industry treated like a career-ending risk. To some, that loyalty looked reckless. To others, it looked like motive. Fans and investigators alike thought it was clear Jay had been silenced as payback for defying the blacklist. But the truth was smaller and far uglier. It wasn't about rap beefs. It wasn't about industry politics. And it wasn't about McGriff. It was about 10 kilos of cocaine. Carl Jordan Jr. and Ronald Washington, men Jay knew and trusted, were charged with his murder after learning they were being cut out of a $200,000 drug deal. By August 2002, Jay had taken the cocaine on consignment, headed for Maryland. He brought in Washington and his godson, Jordan, to move the product. But everything collapsed when another dealer, Ralph Yachty Mulgrave, refused to work with Washington, citing old bad blood. Jay had no choice. He made the call. Washington and Jordan were out. But in that shadow world Jay had stepped into, being cut out wasn't just financial. It was personal, and betrayal always demanded a price. Prosecutors later called it a cold-blooded crime driven by greed and revenge. Witnesses, breaking nearly 2 decades of silence, recounted the scene, Washington holding the door, gun in hand, while Jordan walked up and pulled the trigger. They even bragged afterward, one chilling remark echoing above the rest. If Jay was still alive, they'd kill him again. The verdict couldn't bring Jason Mizell back. But for his family, friends, fans, and all who loved him, it finally brought closure. Because the truth about Jam Master Jay's death wasn't some legendary rap feud. It wasn't industry enemies pulling strings. It was the intimate betrayal of men he trusted, men he helped. The irony cut deeper than any bullet. Jam Master Jay, the man who stood firm against industry politics, who refused to abandon 50 Cent when it was dangerous just to be his friend, wasn't taken out by rival rappers or record labels. He was taken out by his own circle. And with that truth, the story of Jam Master Jay finally closed. Not neatly, not cleanly, but fully.